Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Northern League podcast. We're back in the studio today, and we're joined by a special guest, Nathan Haslam. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me along, lads. Yeah.
Perfect. If you just want to introduce yourself a little bit, just to kick things off.
Yeah. So Nathan Haslam, manager of Guisborough Football Club. Been in management for around about 10 years now. But yeah, just off the back of a good season, ready for next season.
Yeah, and we'll touch on that a bit later on, but we'll start with your sort of coaching roots at Mask United. How did that role come about for you?
Yeah, Mask was me first stint into coaching really. Ted Watts, who you might know, you might not know, he's based down in Stokesley. Know Ted personally. Played for him when I played for Stokesley back in the Wayside League, early 2000s. And I always had that kind of eye of coaching and managing, if you like, looking at the game a slightly different way. And Ted gave me that opportunity. I was living up in Tynemouth, and he said, "What do you think about coming down to Mask?" And it didn't really bother me, the travel, and that was the start of it. Really, it was real enjoyable. Really kind of got my teeth into it, and I think that gave me the appetite to go on and do what I did.
First taste of coaching, what was the biggest experience, sort of learning experience at Mask for yourself?
Just seeing how non-league works, really. It's very, very different. There's lots of different things a manager's obviously got to go through with the budgets, managing players, recruitment. To be fair to Teddy, give me a very a free role in terms of the coaching side of it, which, like I say, was a real passion of mine. And I think we got the recruitment right, and it was a very, very positive season for Mask. It built the foundations to obviously go on and achieve things the following season under a different manager. But it just opened my eyes more than anything, because every non-league club is run differently, but fundamentally, you know, the work that goes on behind the scenes of the volunteers, I think from my point of view, it gave me that. It gave me more respect of what actually, you know, the work that's entailed into running a non-league club, really.
And obviously, winning the Northern League Division 1 title, a huge achievement. Can you sort of describe that race this season and sort of how it got to that point?
Yeah, well, it was off the back of I left Mask for a brief period. Really, it was kind of work related. We got to the fourth round qualifying with Ted that season. Southport away, we got bopped 6-2, but what an experience for the boys. It was the rise of Mask really that first season, I think. And at the end of that season, they won the League Cup over at St James's Park, beat Willie Bay 2-1. Ted left. They kind of underachieved really in the league. There was expectations to do well. Started off the season really well, and they fell away. He moved on, and that's when Carl Jarrett come in, and that was the partnership of me and Carl really again. I was still working. I had a job which limited me slightly, or I thought it would. And again, Carl was very similar to Ted in that he just gave me free rein with everything, and the recruitment was fantastic. The likes of Jamie Owens, Craig Gott was already there. You know, they're still going strong. Adam Wheatley, Robert Dean in goal, still playing for Horden. And that season, there was zero expectation, I think, from everybody else. But internally, we thought, you know, we've got a good chance of doing something in the league. And great for us, we got off to the most perfect start. That carried on the momentum. Went to some of the big boys. I can remember Dunstan, you know, hot favourites, first day of the season. We beat them 3-1. I think Gotti scored from the halfway line. And it was a great season. And to round it off, I remember just going, it was Shildon. They had lots of games in hand. It's ironic because this season it was Shildon again. But Gary Forrest was manager. He had Stewie Niven. Obviously, they're both at Crook now as the management team. And they caught up on the games, and we'd already finished the season. And there was, I think there was 2 points in it. They had to go to Bedlington to win. I turned up and went to Bedlington, wrapped up, cold night it was actually, and Bedlington managed to get a draw. So Shildon, in a sense, they fluffed it, you know, because there would have been odds on to go win that game, but the pitch was really bad. And Andy Farrell, who was the manager of Bedlington at the time, fair play to him, he rang me and asked me, you know, how did he want us to play? And we just said, look, get 10 men behind the ball and see what you can do, and it works. So great season, and like I say, that really catapulted Mask into, I think, the position that they were in up until very recently, where they've enjoyed a lot of success.
So it was a great FA Cup run, and winning the league. Was there any other key highlights from your time at Mask?
Just thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah, like I say, we built a very, very good team, me and Carl. And a lot of those players went on to achieve and play at high levels, obviously. But for me personally, it was the kind of it was the first club I'd been at where I'd really tasted success. Won the league against the odds, you know, on a very, very low budget, but recruitment was imperative. And yeah, obviously I've crossed paths with a lot of those players since.
Sorry, I was just like, I don't want to go too far back, but when you're saying that you had to wait for that Bedlington Shildon game, what sort of like feeling was that for like the players as well? Just sort of eagerly anticipating that result, because that's not like a
Yeah.
usual situation to be in, is it?
Yeah, no, the players I'm not too sure. I mean, social media wasn't what it was like now, WhatsApp, you know, it was
Yeah.
only 10 years ago, but I think there was a nervousness around the place. I think everybody was kind of accepting that Shildon were going to go there and win. There was something about it, and I just thought, no, they've got a chance here, especially when I spoke to Fezza, the Bedlam manager at the time, and I knew that they wanted to do something on the night. It wasn't just a game they were going to turn up and roll over. But it was a big crowd on the night. It was all staged for obviously Shildon to pick up the trophy, and it just didn't work out that way, and that's football. So I think all in all, for me personally, I was very, very hopeful. But you know, I think within the board and everyone else, there was a lot of nervousness as well.
Yeah.
What was the biggest thing that you took then, obviously moving forward in the coaching roles that you've taken on since Mask, in terms of management of the squad and stuff like that? What was the biggest thing you learned at Mask?
I think it's just managing players. You know, players in general. I mean, go right to the top. It's all about player power. It is even in non-league. Um, you can contract players, but if they're not happy, you know, they're going to move on. I think at some point, but I think it was just around the man management style, and you've got to accept you can be as professional as you want. You can be as professional as you can be as well, but you've got to accept that these players are part-time players and they've got lives as well. And I think me going into it, if I applied myself as I did when I was playing, and you know, I didn't go on holiday during pre-season, and I used to put football before work, I've totally come to the fact that I've got to respect that other people don't think like me. And you know, there's lots of non-league players who've got successful careers, and sometimes they can only commit to certain days, and that's where the Northern League comes in because they can't travel. But yeah, it was all around just the respect for how much goes into actually playing in non-league football, I think.
Was there sorry, try to cut you
No,
off
no,
there.
you
Was
go.
there a coach that you ever looked up to, like what sort of aspired to sort of influence sort of their style
No,
and yours?
I wouldn't say so. It was more a case of just taking the best and the bad bits out of all of them because none of us are perfect. I think I looked at it as a player going back to my young pro days, what I liked, what I didn't like. Played under lots of different coaches and managers, but ultimately you've got to be your own person, I think. And I think that's one of the things I am. I've kind of, even if I go back to being a kid, I always looked at the game in a certain way. It hindered me a little bit, especially when I got into non-league, because as a player I knew best. You know, I knew more than the manager. That didn't really stand me in good stead as a player, to be honest with you. But when I look back now, I wasn't always right, but I do I do go back to the days of when I was a young player. I'm actually doing what I was as a manager I wanted to do back then. So I think it's important for anybody. You're always learning. You'll pick up little snippets of information, but I think you've got to be your own person as well.
And following on from Mask was a move to Bishop Auckland. What made that club appeal to you?
It's a massive club, in it. Massive club. At the time, they just moved to Heritage Park. They did have pitch problems, the way the pitch was laid. And I know Darlington were playing there as well at one point. I think they just won the league the season before. But I got the call from Steve Riley, who was the manager at the time. Bishops were in this transitional period. They were struggling against Mask. We had a really good time against them, where we knocked quite a few goals against them, and they were struggling. So I think Steve got me in. He just wanted to shore things up. He wanted a different viewpoint. It was kind of a head coach role, if you like, but again, free reign. Go do what you do, and we finished the season off pretty well. We stabilised them a little bit, and then it was next season again getting recruitment right, bringing the likes of Precy Griffiths in, Andre Bennett, Alex Francis. And we already had Andy Johnson, who was a Bishop Auckland legend, and you know, it was one of those where we built a very, very good team, and we hit the ground running. A brilliant start to the season. Pitch had just been relayed. It was a real good time for us, and we got to Stockport County fourth qualifying round. There's about 7,000 there. We lost 2-0. But again, it was the start of Bishops. going to where they are as well today. So they've hit a bit of a purple patch. I know they've just been relegated, but they've got away from that, I think, up until the last season, and yeah, they've certainly seen some real positive times.
Touching on that, the FA Cup run with Bishop Auckland, obviously apart from it being with a different club, did it have a different feeling to it
Yeah.
from the one with Mask?
Yeah, it did. It did. We had a real identity at Bishops. We brought in quite a lot of footballers from the academies, if you like, especially Middlesbrough, and the pitch played a massive part because it was like a Premier League pitch when it was first laid. We even got the Premier League balls at the time, which were the Nike ones. And that was the detail that went into how we wanted to play. So we played some real nice football. We had a real identity. The FA Cup run was a tough run. All the teams were from the leagues above, and we really popped them off the park. I suppose it was a bit of a shock for most of them. And I think when we went to Farsley Celtic, obviously seen bad times recently, to go away there on a real dogged pitch. It wasn't a nice pitch, and we scrapped it out and we won 1-0. And that was when we got to that fourth qualifying round. It was like, it's got a bit of everything, this team. And like I say, it was a decent season for Bishops as well.
And you like mention all the positive surrounding Bishop. So how do you look back on your time there overall?
Loved it. Loved the people. The fans, obviously, they follow them through thick and thin. They've seen good times and bad times. But yeah, for me personally, it was a real successful stint. And the only reason I did leave it was at the Christmas time. So I wasn't quite there a year, but it was around me, obviously, dipping into the world of being an agent and things like that. The FA rules where you couldn't be involved even at Northern League football as a manager or within a management role at that particular time. So I had to choose one or the other. And that was the start of a brief spell as an FA intermediary.
That's next we're going to come on.
Yeah, that
was
links
the
nicely
agency
to
and intermediary. Just how did that come about, and what was that like as well?
It was a real good experience, and you get the game from a totally different angle at boardroom level. You're dealing with chairman, you're dealing with sporting directors, all sorts of different people that are involved in transfer activity. But the thought first came when I was at Mask with Ted, because we had a player called Jordan Hugel, who he's obviously just signed for Hartlepool now, Jordan. And Jordan was struggling with his knees. I think he had 2 cruciates. He came to us from Whitby. He wasn't going to get his game at Whitby. He'd been over in, I think it was La Manga, with the Glen Hoddle soccer school, where he took people who'd been released from the game, and Jordan had come from over there. So he had an opportunity where he could go on trial to Port Vale. And I went over to the played at Radcliffe Borough in Manchester. They were playing Everton, and Jordan went there. He did okay. He didn't stand out, but he was this big burly non-league young lad, and they offered him a scholarship, and he went there. And obviously, we've seen what Jordan's done. He's done really well out of the game, and there's a lot of non-league players where I think they've got the ability. Can I act as kind of a little bit of a launch pad for them to give them opportunities? So that's where it come from. And then off the back of that, it was the rise of Spennymoor. I got Glenn Taylor. I brought Ryan Hall to Spennymoor, Callum Griffiths, who I've just signed, and Macaulay who's obviously had a lot of success at Gateshead and gone on to be a championship player, was the one who eventually made the grade. So yeah, it was a really interesting time.
Did you find the transition to being in that sort of role from a coach difficult in any way, or was there any surprises you weren't expecting from it?
Nah, the difficult thing was not being involved in football, believe it or not, and that's the reason I ended up going back. But it was really, really interesting. To dog-eat-dog world. The mechanics behind a transfer, even in non-league football, is frightening. The higher up you go, it gets so complex. It's a real strange experience. But where it done really well for me was the networking side of things. I was going as far down as pretty much Birmingham, Manchester a lot, with the clubs over there, and you're dealing with a lot of National League North, National League, League Two, and even to this day I've still got the connections over there, so it does help me. It did help me, but it was it was just one of those where it didn't pay the bills. If I'm being honest, you need a player to to hit the ground running, really. You've got an asset, and that asset is going to pay the bills, basically, and you can recruit off the back of it. Macaulay just took a little bit longer than I'd hoped. I always had belief in him after seeing him. He was playing for Billingham-Synthonia against Stockton Town, and he scored after about 2 minutes with his left foot, and I was like, oh. And what I did off the back of that was, when I watched him again, I thought, no, the kid can finish. That's all it was, he could finish. And I give Neil Aspin a ring. I was really close at the time. Gateshead manager. He was a ex-Halifax. He was the one who had Jamie Vardy. He's done really well with a lot of young players. And Neil had a look at him against Kilmarnock. Lee Clark was the manager at the time at Kilmarnock, and he'd done okay on the day, so they gave him a contract. And when I say he's never looked back, it was a real tough, probably 3 or 4 seasons for him. You know, the mental challenges, the psychological kind of uncertainty. And eventually he went back to Gateshead after leaving and being at York City. It was Mike Williamson who had a team of, well, unbelievable players, particularly attacking players. And they got promoted off the back of that. Macaulay obviously scored a lot of goals, and he went and done it again for Notts County in the next league up, broke all the records in that league, and then he's ended up at Millwall. So fair play to him. He's really had to go through a lot of challenges to get to where he has. He's done it all himself. But I think sometimes in life you just need that little nudge or that little opportunity. And I think, you know, I can take a lot of pride really that, you know, that call to Neil Aspin was the start of that journey for him.
Yeah, I think that Notts County season was Wrexham was in there as well, wasn't it? With
That's right.
Paul
Yeah,
Mullen,
they
and they were both firing goals. And it's interesting, I think, to go from coaching to agency. You know, obviously, would you be able to spot sort of that talent? Did you know that Macaulay would possibly have been able to go on as high as the Championship? Or is that something that obviously he's just elevated his game and reached that level?
The kid
to a
can
new degree?
finish. The kid can finish, and he's always been able to finish. And I think in football, you just need somebody to see that. And I think it took Macaulay probably 3 seasons for somebody to really, really see that. Martin Gray seen it when he was at York, but then Martin Gray got fired from York, and another manager comes in, so you've got to prove yourself again. And when you're a young player, you know, I don't care what anybody says, seniority with some managers does take precedence. And with Macaulay, he was a sufferer of that, I think. But the way Gateshead they were in a position where they didn't have a lot of money. They had to give youth a chance. Macaulay had already been there. He knew Mike. He knew Busted. Obviously, he's moved on now. And, you know, it was an environment that he enjoyed and he excelled. There was him, Paul Blackett, and I think Evans, wasn't it? Kedwin Scott.
Oh yeah.
So there was them 3, and they were all just firing. They all helped each other. But definitely, like, he could score goals, and the amount of conversations I had with clubs higher up the pyramid. Naturally, as a manager, you're always going to be scared to take someone from so low down. But I had a lot of belief in him, and I know the kid had a lot of belief in himself. And you know, Gateshead was the place where he was able to excel, and he had to go do it again at Notts County. He did it, so fair play to him.
And then moving on from the sort of agency role, you got back into management with Whitley Bay. How did that role come about for you?
Yeah, well, I lived 2 minutes from the ground. I think that was a good thing on the CV. But there were advertising. I did express an interest, and that was me. I miss football. You know, I can speak to all the players, managers, chairmen, sporting directors I like, but I do really miss the stuff on the grass. And Whitley Bay was my route back into that. So went into Whitley Bay, built a really good young squad. It was a bit of a project. It was never going to happen straight away there, based on the funds that we had. But we created a great culture, and it was okay. It was a decent team we put together. But then COVID come, and you know, for so many clubs and people, it set everybody back. But off the back of that came the move to Whitby.
What was that sort of coaching experience like during COVID? I imagine it would have been a
Tough.
strange environment.
Yeah, it was tough, and I think it was for everybody, just the fact that nothing was normal. You sat in the house, you can only go out once a day. You look back now, it's absolutely crazy. But as footballers, you know, everyone was going stir crazy. They do look after themselves. They all do now. But I think COVID was the one time when they couldn't get out and do enough exercise. So you did find a lot of unconditioned footballers. But it went on for too long. It went on for too long. But I think it was really, really tough for everybody, me included.
And then moving on to Whitby Town, obviously a very big club, and in a I believe step 3 at the time. Yeah. So how was that move for you?
Well, Chris Hardy was the manager, and Lee Bullock was the assistant, and they'd been together quite a long time. I know through Chris, obviously speaking to him quite often, I put quite a lot of players into Chris, being an agent. So we formed a good relationship, I think a trusting relationship. And the Northern Premier League, he knew I wanted to progress. And I think in the back of his mind, he'd been at Whitby for 4 or 5 years. And he was coming to the point where he's feeling a bit drained. He needs some additional support, really. So that's where I came in. In terms of recruitment, we made some really good signings in that summer. Jacob Hazel being one of them. He scored 44 goals, I think, that season, and moved to Darlington off the back of it. But real good season in the end. But for Chris, unfortunate for him, 4 or 5 games, and he just decided he had enough, which I understood. And then COVID come in again and delayed us for a little bit. But it all started back up again, and what a season we had. We finished, we got into the first round proper, the FA Cup, and a decent league finish. Always flirted with the playoffs, but we rounded the season off with that win in the North Riding Senior Cup. So it was for Whitby a really good season. I think it was the first time in the FA Cup first round for 20 odd years, I think it was. And it was just nice seeing the younger generation. One of the fans, Pete Graham, he does a lot of fundraising there, and he used to always remind me about the FA Cup. He wouldn't get out my ear. And he said, look, this younger generation have never seen it, so can you deliver it? And he used to say every season, luckily for us that season, memories that will last forever, and from a manager point of view, lots and lots of experience and things picked up as well.
You mentioned there, first time in 20 years for the first round proper for Whitby. What was that feeling like? Obviously, you'd had a little bit of success already in the FA Cup runs, but that was obviously the biggest achievement so far in your career.
Yeah, it was really, really emotional, and I think it was seeing the fans more than anything. We went to Chelmsford City away, and it was like 5.5 hours away. It was a right stint. And we were beating them 2-0 with 10 minutes to go. We were in control of the game, and they scored 1 goal. And they say goals change games. People got a little nervous. They got the second goal, and a lot of the lads felt defeated in the changing room after that game. But it was still alive. We would have had a replay on a Tuesday night, and they would have had to come all the way to Whitby. So it was just a case of getting them all together again psychologically. We'd done that, and there was just something in the air that night. I think the feeling was we were going to win the game. It certainly was for me. And we did. We played unbelievably well. It was the best Whitby performance under the lights. Beat them 3-1, and then you get the pitch invasion at the end of it, and people jumping all over the place. And very similar to this season with Guisborough, it's the fans that you see, the emotional side of it. That's what I do it for. Like, it's great getting the self-achievement and getting the praise. Of course, it is. Everybody wants a pat on the back, but football is about the fans, and that's what that night was. It was tears of joy. We've done it, first round proper, and then you wait for the first round proper draw. So, but yeah, it was amazing, and off the back of that, without mentioning clubs or anything like that, there was an offer to go manage at another club, which I turned down because I wanted to go in the first round. But that's what comes with success, I suppose. You do get offers from elsewhere, but yeah, it was a real memorable time, because I know we got through to the first round proper, and just to sort my head out, I had to jet off to Mallorca for 3 or 4 days to have a good think about where I was going with things. But no, I stayed at Whitby, and like I say, it was a brilliant time.
No, we'll touch on that first round. Obviously not the result you would have wanted, but the experience going on to Bristol Rovers, obviously a massive club. Can you give a bit of insight on that?
Yeah, it was the preparation around it and the excitement. It wasn't a 5.5 hour trip. It was much longer. Bristol City. It needed an overnight stay. So again, for the club, it was all new. They wanted the preparation right. For the players, it was exciting. We took the kids down as mascots. We did all our prep work on them. Joey Barton had just been fired the week before, so that scuppered our plans. And then they had a caretaker manager who was doing really well in the game. Now he's been working for Carlo Ancelotti's son over in Brazil, and I think he's going to be going over to Spain with him. So it's one of them where you meet all these different people along the way, and I think certainly from a football club point of view, the experience of going through, and the fans, when the buses, I think we took 6 or 7 buses down. There was a lot of Whitby fans there that day, and more younger fans as well, which was nice. So it's memories for them. But as the game went on, You know, there was something I was really uncomfortable with, but you kind of agree to it because there's money involved. Where, you know, I don't know, it's Sky Sports or BBC. They've got the cameraman behind the dugout, and they're coming to you every 15 minutes. How was the game going? You just think, I just want to get on with the game. But it was very, very different, quite surreal. But I think for every single one of those boys and everyone involved with the club, it you know, it's an experience, not just that they won't forget, but it's an experience that they'll take forward if they ever get there again.
Another moment for you to celebrate with the fans was the North Riding Senior Cup victory. What was the feeling like winning that?
Yeah, rounded off just a really good positive season. We were playing Borough Rangers, we were firm favourites to win it. But to be fair to Borough Rangers, it was the season before in the North Riding Cup that knocked us out on penalties. We played the game at Stokes at the time because that's where they were playing. But they were going there obviously bullish. It's a final, anything can happen in the final. And I think for us, again, it was just about mentality. We didn't take anything for granted. We had to obviously respect the opposition, but we just wanted to play the way that we played. We got the conditions right, the carpet of a football pitch, the right footballs. We had the players, and we really, really dominated the game on the night. Obviously, we won 5-1. We did it professionally, but it was just the end of a great season, really. And off the back of a successful season, you lose your best players, they go on to bigger and better things. And to be honest, that's a lot of pleasure I take as being a manager stroke coach, because ultimately that's what you want your players to do. You want them to progress.
And sort of during your time at Whitby, you had a lot of like personal progression in sort of the roles you had at the club.
Yeah.
So how important was that sort of development across the seasons there?
I've said this to lots of people, even from Whitby, but Whitby's the hardest job that anyone will do in the Northeast. So from a learning perspective, you can only learn lots of things that you find yourself getting into things that really shouldn't be. In terms of recruitment, we're recruiting players from Teesside. I was recruiting from Newcastle, from Yorkshire. It's just location's so hard for Whitby. And in terms of the monies that they've got, it's an okay budget. It's not bad, but it's not what the rest of them are paying as well. So everybody's caught Whitby up because they've been in that league for God knows how long. The pull was always the level, so you could pull the best Northern League players, the ones below that, because of the level you were at. But you've seen Darlington, Spennymoor, Stockton, Hebburn. There's lots of them who've come and gone past them, and that's what makes it really, really hard. So I think, the recruitment was really hard, but ultimately as a football club as well, they've only got one team, or they did only have one team, which was the first team. There was no junior section. It was kind of getting the fans involved as well. And yeah, I've been to 3 clubs since Whitby, or 2 clubs since Whitby, and Whitby is the hardest job. It's I'm not going to say it any less than that. And Bully, who's there now, he's got a job in his hands, because it's not the club, it's a great club, great people around the place. It's just location recruitment's very, very hard.
One of the jobs you've taken on since Whitby was a short-term spell at Blythe Spartans. What was that like for you?
Loved it. Again, an experience. Mickey Connors, obviously manager of Blythe Town now, he was going through a real tough time. And we know, Blythe is a football club, the Spartans, massive. I've seen them play lots of times in National League North, and they've just been going on this down spiral for quite a while now. But again, lots of great people there. We got to know the fans, so loyal, really, really good. And I've become really close to them. But I think it was just one of those. For me personally, probably just time, and probably the wrong time. But for Blythe Spartans, it might have been the right time, because I think we played the game against Morpeth on, I think it was New Year's Day, and I think we drew 0-0, and it was the first clean sheet we'd kept. We had a bit of an identity on the day. We went very solid with structure, and a good Morpeth team struggled to break us down, and that didn't mirror a team who were rock bottom of the league, who were getting beat every week. We thought we had something to really work with. The problem was the budget was absolutely extortionate, and the new board who just come in were kind of unraveling lots of different things, and I'd only been through the doors probably a week or two, and it's, look, we've got half the budget, so it changes everything. I then became somebody to move players on. So again, it's where my agent skills came in. I was getting in touch with clubs, and we're just trying to half the budget as quick as we possibly could, because the club were in trouble. But what I had to do was I had to make a decision myself that it was something that I would help them. I would do what I need to do, get them to the point they would. But ultimately, they were staring relegation in the face, and that's not something that I was prepared to do. Was have a relegation on my CV through no fault of my own, and we got to a certain point, and it was just one of those. Look, I've done everything I can, and I went with the club's best wishes. So I think looking back, people won't see it, but I think it helped the club massively that season by managing to half that budget, which was a big budget. A lot of big earners get them off the wage bill, and now obviously we're hoping we see a bit of a resurgence from them under Nashy and Woody.
And you've sort of touched on having to like change your role at the club quite like dramatically there with the budget work. So how was that sort of experience? Like sort of coming in and as a coach, but having to do like different things on the side as well.
Just using my skill set, really. It's something I've got lots of experience in through being a manager, and having the contacts to move players on, really. Because I think when you're recommending a player to another manager, if you've got that respect and they know that you know a player, they're going to take your word for it. So, there was some great lads who probably the names were tarnished a little bit just because of the situation they're in, getting beat every week, not scoring goals or conceding goals. And they just needed a new environment, because I think at that particular time, and I think everybody would say, it becomes draining even for the players. Fans, they love the club, they just want the best for the club, and the frustration then goes out on the terraces. And nobody means anything by it, it's just frustration. And that's, I think, where it was at that time.
You'll be returning to Croft Park this season with Guisborough, so we'll get on to that a little bit later on. But you're
Yeah.
looking forward to that encounter?
Can't wait. As every game, but especially with Blythe, again, big club. I think from a recruitment point of view, anybody looks at Blythe Spartans as a massive non-league club, and I think it's the same as coaches and managers. It's a great non-league arena to go express yourself. For me, it just has that little bit of added meaning in the sense I've been there, I've got to know the people there, and the fans as well. So it's to take another team there and obviously try and win, and that's the motivation, really. So yeah, really looking forward to that next season.
And obviously we'll touch on like the beginnings of the Guisborough move now. What were the sort of ambitions when you arrived there?
Guisborough was it was one of those where I think kind of football ego, really, more than anything. You've been managing at step 3. You don't initially really even consider the Northern League, and some would say it is an ego, and I think that's what it exactly was with me. But the point is, when I looked at it, and I looked at all the managers at the clubs, if you're going to advance yourself, like your Darlingtons, your South Shields, all the teams that were operating at higher than Whitby or the same level as Whitby, managers were all doing a cracking job. They all look very, very safe. The North East, there's not lots of opportunities here like there was in the North West in Manchester. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to have the conversation with him. It was Gary Wood who really pushed me into it, who obviously ended up being my assistant, ex-chairman of Redcar Athletic. And we went for that conversation. I was blew away by them, absolutely blew away by the people who I met. And we come to an agreement that night, really. And I said, look, where do you want to finish as you do? What's your aspirations? And I think every club in the land always says playoffs. Everybody says it, even the players say it. And I said, right, okay. I said, I think we can do that. I think that's something that I would definitely strive for. I wouldn't be coming if that wasn't the case. But I need you to get in the mindset of trying to win the league rather than the playoffs. And they smiled and they said, yeah, we can do that. But they didn't really believe it, I don't think. But we made sure that, coming through the doors, we planned everything properly. Everybody was on board. Again, I keep saying it, but got the recruitment right. And then, you've got to go after that fast start. And we did that. We didn't look back.
Coaching in a variety of different steps in the football pyramid, did you notice possibly having to sort of adapt to each individual division?
Yeah, the biggest adaptation for me is Sunday League football, Northern League. So lots of lads like to play Sunday League football. I get it, I understand it. It's a social thing. But I've always been in the mindset, if you play football on a Saturday, you shouldn't even be to walk on a Sunday. That's my mindset. So it's just try and limit as many Sunday League football as I possibly could, within reason. And we didn't have too many, to be fair. But they even get paid on playing on a Sunday as well now. So it's a money maker for them. But I think that was the biggest thing I had to adapt to. As far as the football goes, nothing really changes for me. The quality does change, but I think the skill set within a coach or a manager is getting the best out of players and getting them to understand what you're trying to do. And then it's for them to go replicate it. And luckily for us last year, the boys, I would say we probably got to about 50% of what I really wanted, and that was enough for us to go do what we did in the Northern League. So now it's about advancing that, progressing that, and taking into the next league.
And you've talked about like progression there. I think the season before this one, Guisborough finished around mid-table. So what do you think the sort of key driving factors were in the success this season?
Recruitment has a lot to do with it. The players, the ones out there, performing. But I think, the way I like to do things is be professional as everybody does. But there's saying it, and then there's different levels to being professional as well. And mentality, psychology, they're massive in the game now, even at this level. Making sure lads are turning up in the right frame of mind, that they, when they win games or lose games, they accept it. You acknowledge it. I always remember us losing against Penrith to pretty much a last kick of the game with 10 men, and the lads, the chins were on the floor, and they were like, "What's going on? We've lost." And I was like, "It doesn't matter. Just move on. It's like it's football. This is what happens." And I think they got what I was trying to get, like get the message through. And the mentality of the boys was fantastic all season. And I think it's the reason, the mentality is the reason why we did what we did, because a lot of the players we did have were the same players who finished 11th, and that changed. So yeah, I think mentality, psychology, and giving them the license to go perform freely, and have loads of courage to try things. It was certainly a good recipe for success for us.
If I remember right, I think Whitley Beard started the season really well, and then it was a two-horse race, obviously, between yourself and Shildon, sort of going full circle. Shildon were battling with you right at the beginning of your coaching career as well. What was that feeling like, finally getting over the line and winning the title? 41 years, I think it was, since the last title win for Guisborough.
It was amazing, but you brought Willie Beard there, who at the time were absolutely phenomenal. They were scoring lots of goals, and all. Leighton Campbell had a lot to do with that. But one player doesn't make a team, and they were certainly flying. But ultimately, and I learned this from my mask days. It's seasons are long, old marathons, and you'll have good patches, you'll have bad patches. When you're having your bad times, it's important you keep picking up the wins. And fortunately for us, that's what we've done. And Shildon, I say they pushed us all the way. It was two teams who probably pushed each other, if I'm being honest. And I just think they've been mega unlucky, haven't they, over the last 3 years. They just seem to fall at the last hurdle. Whatever reason that is that a mentality thing? I don't know, but we weren't really bothered about Shildon. We just were worried about ourselves. We made sure that we never ever mentioned Shildon in any interviews. We didn't even speak about them when we were going through team talks or anything like that. Shildon was never ever at the forefront. It was all about us. And so to do it at Carlisle that day, again, it was memories similar to Whitby when we got to the first round proper. Seeing the fans prepare for it, seeing the buses come over, interacting with the fans, going 1-0 behind, not worrying about it, just essentially believing in ourselves. And then in the end, we took full control of the game. And when it got to probably 55 minutes to an hour, we knew we were going to win the league, and I think the fans did as well. And when the final whistle goes and you see the tears of joy in the chairman, and the volunteers, just tears of joy, that's what did it for me. Just kept out the way, let them enjoy it. And it was a nice relaxing, if you like, last week to the season. Go do it at Shildon again.
And when you look back on the season as a whole, was there any sort of key games that what you think were sort of like statement victories, or a key like emotion like building for the side?
The key game was Penrith away when we lost 2-1. We went down to 10 men. Fergie got sent off just after half time. We dominated the game with 10 men, but we just looked a little bit toothless at the top end. And I'd seen it a few times in previous games. I remember West Auckland when we drew 1-1 away. We just looked a little bit toothless. In the Vars, we didn't progress in the Vars because we weren't good enough in the final third, but we played some nice football. You don't win games just by playing nice football, so you've got to have a bit of something in the final third. And you were defensively strong, but us losing there 2-1, not only was it a mental shift for the lads to understand that you're going to lose games. In my own head, I knew I needed to make some signings just to give us some more competition, some more firepower. And that's when I went and signed Matty Wilshaw and from West Auckland, and Tolu Osiemi, big Tolu from Wickham, who a lot of people were surprised by because Wickham were rock bottom. Tolu didn't really score many goals, but I seen something in the boy where he'll look good and he'll work well within the chemistry of our the way we like to play. And he's been a revelation. And them two were the turning point in us then going on and beating teams well.
I think that's interesting. It's sometimes you just have to find the right manager to sort of play for you in a way,
Yeah.
and you bring the best out of the player. I'm sorry, I forgot what I was going to say there. I was just going on about signings and that. What's the ambitions for next season then in the MPL East? Obviously jumping up a division.
Yeah.
How is that going to change, or in any way it might not change for you?
Nothing really changes. We have, aspirations where we want to do well. The fact of the matter is, you ask all my players, and the board, they'll all say it'd be great if we get into the playoffs. I think the playoffs go down to 7th position now.
Yeah.
Which is a bonus for any team in the league, because it just gives you an extra 2 places to be involved at the end. I've got to be respectful of the level. Of course I do. Teams coming up, and a lot of them will be saying it'd be good just to consolidate and stay up. My board might be thinking that way. They've not told me that. They're certainly not talking about winning titles or anything, but we've just got to go into it and be the best version of ourselves. We're preparing properly now. We've started pre-season. It mirrors very similar to what we did last pre-season because it was successful for us. We've got to get through the pre-season games. The new signings have got to kind of gel with what we've already got. But I just think we're in a lot stronger position, certainly, than what I was this time last year. And when I say the squad, that's won the Northern League. If I was to say that we've made 6 or 7 signings, it'll make us even stronger. I think it stands us in good stead, providing everything goes well, to have a real good season in that league. I'm not saying we're going to do what Redcar did last year, because that was just a phenomenal achievement. I don't think that'll be done for a long time, but we'll be competitive in every game, and then it becomes down to the small margins of, can you get that 1-0 win, 2-1 win, turn draws into wins and turn defeats into draws. But no, for me personally as the manager, I'm relatively confident going into this season.
It's the first time the club's out the Northern League for, I think, 41 years. So what's it been like behind the scenes at the club? There must be a lot of positivity around that as well.
It's the best club I've been at in terms of just the vibe around the place. But then again, we've gone off the back of not losing a game at home. All the fans they think losing's impossible now. So that sets another challenge in itself next year. They've never seen us lose at home. And we've won the league. So there's just a feel-good factor right around the football club. The bar's absolutely bouncing after every game. Numbers are up. We've pretty much doubled the attendances. We want those to go up again next year. But we're not naive enough to realise it's the product on the pitch. And football can be quite fickle. It is about winning. And people want to see their team winning. And when you get a taste of it, you want it to carry on. And that's when you get the likes of Blythe, where they're not successful. They've had lots of success over the years. They're going through that cycle now where it wasn't. And hopefully now they're at the time where they can go again. But at our place, it's I've seen nothing like it, and the amount of work, like every club the volunteers do, is frightening. And me as a manager, I ask so much of them in terms of even the ground staff, getting the pitch right and the preparation with the kits and the kit man. And I always have to take a step back and think these people do this for nothing. The volunteers, and I'm totally respectful of that. But I can't thank them enough because they really have gone above and beyond.
The home form for yourself is going to be your biggest asset going into next season. Obviously, as you said there, unbeaten at home this season. You'll just be trying to take that momentum into next year.
Yeah, without a doubt. You always want to win at home. Luckily for us, it was a great season last season. Definitely at home. It wasn't perfect. We drew the one, which was Carlisle City, last kick of the game.
Fitting that you then went and won the title.
Yeah, it was nice in the end, to be fair. But your home form, obviously, it's massive for any club because that's what brings the fans through as well. But I think the team that we've got, and I think last season proved it, when I look at the points that we dropped last year, they could have been avoided. We were dominant in the games. There wasn't one game where we weren't the dominant team, I don't think. In fact, there wasn't. It just comes down to both boxes and concentration levels, and we didn't just play football. We could mix it up. We could go the first and second balls. We could go high press. We could go low block. If it got into a fight, we could fight set pieces, and we're going to have the same kind of tools this year as well. So home or away, I don't think it really matters. The main aim is to pick up as many points as you can.
And you sort of mentioned there how your squad can sort of do a bit of everything. So I was just wondering, across your coaching career as a whole, is there a philosophy you have, or like you said, you just adapt to the situation when you can as well.
Yeah, it's football's a simple game, and when we talk about philosophies, we've all got ways we want to play and identities, if you like. But the name of the game is winning. You just got to win games. That's the philosophy, I think. And albeit for us, we don't really play with the formation. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't really believe it until they play against it. But it's the freedom around a system. We have a system, and within that system, we have rotations, and we have different. They've got to be able to play different positions. We work off overloads and putting the ball into different areas. So when we're in possession, we're a very good team, and we do things that are kind of really against the norm and the grain, really. But I think if anybody said, if they played against Guisborough or any of my Whitby teams, teams where Everton NAS teams, if you like, we've always had good footballers, good attacking teams who score goals. But I think the most important thing is that defensive back line. We've always had good, strong defences, and that last season having the defensive record that we did was again in a really strong league. It was a phenomenal achievement to do that.
And obviously a good season, great season. Sorry, manager of the year for yourself must be a proud achievement as well.
Yeah, it is. Of course, it is. You don't get a lot of praise as a manager, and I'm one of those people who doesn't really want it. If I'm being honest, I like just being quiet and in the background. But certainly at the end of it all, it is nice to obviously have been voted that. It's not just me. Obviously, there's other people behind the scenes. I've got a management team who do a lot of work, a lot of supporting work, lots of opinions, lots of good advice, and the volunteers. So it's for everyone, really. And I really, really mean that. But at the same time, people have said, look, you've got to take the praise, because if it goes the other way, Joe's obviously getting the can. So yeah, I think it topped off for me personally a real positive season for us. Yeah.
I was just wondering, personally, on the final day, you had to play Shildon, and like you say, it was sort of a relaxing end, knowing that the title was done. But to go and win 5-2, that must be a bit of a statement as well.
Yeah, it was a psychological game. We'd already won the league. They had aspirations to go up in the playoffs. So the way obviously Chris looked at it was, we need to be as fresh as possible. We need to go into the playoffs as in the best nick we possibly can. Because essentially our game was a nothing game. But was it a nothing game? We'd won the league. We wanted to win it. It was that was the psychological side of it for us. We wanted to win the league. And only Shildon will answer this, but you lose football matches. For me, it doesn't matter who it's against or what it is. It's you prefer to go into the playoffs winning. But they had a decision to make. They made it, and we still had to go do a job. And I think on the day, they acquitted themselves really, really well. We were just too powerful. They had a few square pegs and round holes, if you like. Rested some of the big players. So some could say, well, the scoreline, it's not a true reflection, but ultimately you can only beat what's in front of you. Likewise with ourselves, we had a few players missing, and we played a couple of kids ourselves. So it was just a real carnival party atmosphere for us. We donned a limited edition white kit, which all the players loved. White and gold, and fair play to Shildon, by the way. They were so professional. They did the guard of honour, which kind of been a nice thing to do. If I'm being brutally honest, I wouldn't have liked. We would have done it, but I wouldn't have liked it if it was on the foot was screw was on the other foot. But I think David Dent, the chairman, he was class. He was really, really class, and they wished us all the best, and they did everything they possibly could. And again, it's not nice, but you're lifting the trophy on the team you've been challenging all season. We're just really professional. I think it shows the class of what the club is, really.
I was wondering if you've got any other questions, Jack. I think it's all sorted from me, to be fair.
Yeah, I think
yeah. I hope you've enjoyed that.
Nice and easy.
Yeah. Thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. I hope,
Thank you.
like I say, you enjoyed it. Was it too bad for you? Or?
Nah, absolute breeze. Loved it, lads. Brilliant.
Great. That's all.
Just
that's
me
all
forgetting what question I was going to ask.
Only one blip, to be fair. So not too bad. Not too bad. So thanks again for coming on.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks.